Today I'm going to discuss the most important chapter is the interview by the Christopher Silvester. Christopher Silvester was born on the 1959 and educated at Lansing College. The interview by the Christopher Silvester is an excerpt taken from his Penguin Book of Interviews. In this he talks about the various opinions of the celebrity regarding an interviews. It also consists of an excerpt from an interview with the infamous writer Alberto Eco. The lesson began with the introduction to interview as a commonplace of journalism since its invention, which was a little over 130 years ago. According to the author, it is not very surprising and that people having very distinct opinion about the usage of interview. Some thinks of it in its highest form whereas some pupils can't stand being interviewed. An interview leaves an lasting impression when the perceptions are made by some certain person. There are therefore the original identity of his souls. The famous celebrity artists and writers have been heard critiquing interviews. Umberto Eco was recently an academician who pursued his scholarly pursuit through academic writing. He wrote about the 40 non-fictions and as he himself says he becomes a novelist by an accident. Thus thus that it is the reason behind he started writing a novel at the age of almost 50. Eco considers himself a university professor who writes novels on Sunday. He is not even very sure about the huge success of his novel, The Name of the Rose. He feels perhaps that the timing of the novel's publication was the most important factor of its success. The fact that at one's levels it appears to be a detective yarn but also delves into a metaphysics, theology, and the medieval history also added to its appeal. Umberto Eco writing style is a narrative writer in the manner of a story. This is in its contrast to a regular academic style which is invariable, dispersonalized, dry, boring. His scholarly work has a certain playful and personal quality to it. He pursued his philosophical interest through his academic work and novels. He also wrote novels on non-violence and pieces. Despite getting the famous as a novelist, Alberto Eco always associated with the academic community. He has curtained 5 novels, only 40 novels as compared to the 40 scholarly work of non-fiction. He considers himself as a university professor who writes novels on Sunday. Some celebrities some celebrities see themselves as victims and despise the interview as an unwarranted and intrusions into their lives. They feel that it somehow diminishes them just as in some private culture. They believe that if someone takes the photographic portrait of somebody, then one is stealing that personal soul. Lewis Carroll studied interviews for the fear of being projected as larger than life. He vehemently refuses to give the interview and kept his fan, acquaintance, and interviewers at an arm's length. This gave him warm satisfaction. V.S. Naipaul feels that some people wanted by interviews and lost part of themselves. Rudyard Kipling expressed an even more condemnatory attitude towards the interviewers. His wife reports her husband as saying that he considered as interview as a crime and immoral and thus it merits punishment. Now we have a conclusion of the interview chapter. By the reading of this chapter and by the analyzing of the paragraph, we comes to know that how the Christopher Sylvester is was a great writer and born on the 1959 and educated at Lancing College. An interview by the Christopher Sylvester is an excerpt taken from his Penguin book of the interviews, and in this he talks about the various opinions of the celebrities regarding an interview. It also consists of an excerpt from an interview with the infamous writer Alberto Eco's. ठीक है. Then we have the lesson which is bigger with the introduction to the interviews as a common places of journalism since its invention, and which was a little over 130 years ago. According to the author, it is not very surprising that people having very distinct opinions about the usage of interview, something of it in its highest form, whereas some pupils can't stand being interviewed. An interview leaves an lasting impression when the perceptions are made by some certain person. Therefore, the original identity of his soul is captured, like is steel. The famous celebrities, artists, and writer have been heard critiquing interviews. So, in both paragraphs, we comes to know that how the Christopher Sylvester uh, excerpt taken from his Penguin book of interview. ठीक है? And he talk about the various opinions of the celebrities regarding the interviews. क्या क्या opinions थे celebrities के interviews के बारे में, और ये जो interview excerpt है वो कहाँ से लिया गया? Penguin book से लिया गया है, जो कि सिल्वेस्टर की है. जो लेसन है वो बिगन हुआ आपके इंट्रोडक्शन से, लाइक टू द इंटरव्यू एज अ कॉमन प्लेस ऑफ द जर्नलिज्म सिंस इन्वेंशन, जब इसका इन्वेंशन हुआ. ठीक है, जर्नलिज्म से. एंड अकॉर्डिंग टू द ऑथर इट इज़ वेरी सरप्राइजिंग दैट पीपल हैव वेरी डिस्टिंक्ट ओपिनियन अबाउट द यूसेज ऑफ इंटरव्यूज. अलग अलग लोगों की अलग अलग डिस्टिंक्ट ओपिनियंस है अबाउट द इंटरव्यूज. ठीक है. some some people thinks that if someone captured if they interviewed, so someone captured their ideas, their images, so they basically they like to be interviewed as a celebrity artist writer, and all all of them have the distinct difference about the interviews. So Alberto Eco was recently an academician who pursued his scholarly pursuit through the academic writing. He wrote about the 40 non-fiction, and as he himself says that he became a novelist by accident. ठीक है, एक्सीडेंटली वो एक नॉवलिस्ट बन गए हैं, एंड थर्स दैट इज द रीजन बिहाइंड ही स्टार्टेड राइटिंग अ नॉवल एट द एज ऑफ द ऑलमोस्ट 50. Suddenly they started writing non-fictions and fictions almost at the age of 50. He could consider himself a university professor who writes novels on Sunday. ठीक है, वो अपने आप को एक यूनिवर्सिटी प्रोफेसर समझते हैं जो कि संडे को नॉवेल्स लिखते हैं. He is not even very sure about the huge success of his novel, The Name of the Rose. Okay, he, uh, he has written a beautiful novel, The Name of the Roses, and he not even very sure about the huge success of this novel. He feels perhaps that the timing of the novel publication was the most important factor of its success. जो टाइमिंग थी पब्लिकेशन की वो एक इम्पॉर्टेंट फैक्टर थी सक्सेस के लिए, उनके नॉवल के लिए. And the fact that at the one level it appears to be a detective yarn but also delves into the metaphysical, physics, theological, and medieval history also added to its appeal. Alberto Eco writing style is narrative, written in the manner of a story. This is in the contrast to a regular academic style, which is invariably dispersonalized, dry, and boring. His scholarly work has a gritty, playful, and personal quality to it. He pursued his philosophical interest through his academic work and novels. He also wrote novels on non-fiction, non-violence, and peace. Despite getting famous as a novelist, Alberto Eco always associated with the academic community. He has written 5 novels, only 40 novels, as compared to the 40 scholarly works of non-fiction. He considers himself as a university professor who writes novels on Sunday. Despite getting famous as a novelist, Alberto Eco was always associated with the academic community. वो एक academic community के लिए जाने जाते हैं, associate होते हैं, and he has written 5 novels, only 40 novels, as compared to the 40 scholarly works of non-fiction. He considers himself as a university professor, okay, and who writes novels on the Sunday. And some celebrities use themselves as a victim and despise the interview as an unwarranted instructions into their lives. They feel that it somehow diminishes them, just as in some private cultures. They believe that if someone takes photographic portrait of somebody, then one is stealing that personal soul. If someone takes their photographic photograph, uh, being an as a celebrity, and if someone is interviewed by someone, उन्हें ऐसा लगता है कि अगर वो इंटरव्यू देते हैं तो someone steals like a photographic portrait, and stealing their personal soul. If they interviewed, they were ready to capture their photographic portrait, and their personal soul will be damaged by being interviewed by someone. Lewis Carroll Sturnett interviews for the fear of being projected as larger than life. He vehemently refuses to give interviews and keep his fans, acquaintances, and interviewers at an arm's length. This gives him warm satisfaction. लेविस कर्लर्स जो एक राइटर हैं उनका स्टनिंग है इंटरव्यू से फॉर द फियर ऑफ बीइंग प्रोजेक्टेड एज अ लार्ज देन लाइफ. He eventually refused to give interviews and kept his fame accurately and do the interviews at an arm's length. This gave him warm satisfaction. वो इंटरव्यूज़ फेस करने में बिल्कुल भी इंटरेस्टेड नहीं रहते हैं और वो vehemently रिफ्यूज़ कर देते हैं from being interviewed by someone. V.S. Naipaul feels that some people wanted by interviews and lost part of themselves. V.S. Naipaul का कहना है कि अगर someone some people wanted by interviews, ठीक है, and lost part of themselves. अगर being interviewed, they ready to lost themselves by someone. He also refused to being interviewed. Rudyard Kipling expressed an even more condemnatory attitude towards the interviewers. His wife reported her husband as saying that he considered as interview as a crime and immoral, and thus it merit punishment. Rudyard Kipling expressed an more condemnatory attitude towards the interviewers. His wife reported her husband as saying that he considered एन इंटरव्यू एज अ क्राइम। ठीक है। जो रुडियार्ड क्लिपिंग है उनकी वाइफ का कहना है कि इंटरव्यू जो है एक क्राइम है, इमोरल है एंड थर्स इट मेरिट पनिशमेंट, लाइक एक पनिशमेंट की तरह है फ्रॉम बीइंग एन interviewer, and giving interview uh, to someone is like a crime, immoral, and merits punishments. So by this paragraph and through the structure of this answer we comes to know that how the Christopher Sylvester की जो एक्सवर्ट टेकन फ्रॉम हिज पैंगविन बुक ऑफ द इंटरव्यूज, एंड ये जो एक्सर्ट है वो उनकी पैंगविन बुक से लिया गया है, एंड बाय दिस पैराग्राफ, बाय दिस एक्सवर्ट we comes to know that how the different people have the different opinion from being an interviewer, and if someone giving an interview by to someone is like a different thoughts, and like uh, some people says that being an interviewer is like a merit punishment, is immoral, and is like a crime. If someone taking interview of someone is like a crime, if someone is ready to give a interview, and if he is ready to take his photographic portrait, and he is ready to give his personal soul to someone. ठीक है। तो various celebrities have the different kind of thoughts about the interviews, artists, writers. Everybody have a different kind of opinion from being an interviewer, and writers, we have an example of Breto Eco, and was recently an academian admission who pursued his scholarly pursuit through academic writing. He wrote about the 40 non-fictions, and as he himself says, he becomes a novelist by accident, and that is the reason behind he started writing a novel at the age of the almost 50. And Eco considered himself a university professor who is ready to write a novel on the Sunday. Like occasionally, he is not even very sure about the huge success of the novel. Like the name of the roses, for example, he feels perhaps that uh, uh, the timing of the novel publication was the most important factor of its success. Um, he is not giving a reason behind that he is a good writer. He is saying that the timing of the is the important factor. That's why his novel, The Name of the Roses, is become very successful. Alberto Eco writing style is narrative in the manner of story, and this is the contrast to a regular academic style, which is invariable, dispersonalized, dry, and boring. And his scholarly work has a certain playful and personal qualities to it, and he pursued his philosophical interest through his academic work and novels. He also wrote novels on non-violence and peace. Despite getting famous as a novelist, Alberto Eco always associated with the academic community. He has written 5 novels, only 40 novels as compared to the 40 scholarly works of non-fiction. He considered himself as a university professor who writes novels on Sunday. Okay, now we have a Lewis Carroll's thoughts about the interview, and being an interviewer, which kind of thought he have in his mind, which kind of different opinion he have about the interview. Um, he always vehemently refused to give interview and kept his fans. Accused that interviews at an arm's length, This gives him warm satisfaction. वो रिफ्यूज कर देते हैं in being an interviewer and accusers and interviewers at the arm's length. This give him warm satisfaction और ये उन्हें एक warm satisfaction देता है and vice versa Naples जो है वो भी यही feel करते हैं कि some people wanted by interviews and lost part of themselves. If a person is being an interviewer, he lost themselves. Like some part of his soul is still and he is also refused to gi- to give interview. Rudyard Kipling expressed an even more condemnatory attitude towards the interviewer and उनका भी एक condemnatory attitude है towards the interviewer and his wife reports her husband as saying that he considered an interview as a crime. उनकी जो वाइफ है वो क्राइम समझती है इंटरव्यू को एंड इमोरल समझती है एंड थर्स इट्स मैरिज पनिशमेंट लाइक पनिशमेंट वो एक पनिशमेंट की तरह उसे समझते हैं कि फ्रॉम being an interviewer and interviewed by someone is like a crime. Now we have a conclusion. We learn that how many people differ from the other when it comes to interviews, and they are very interesting and informative as seen from Embrato interview. So by the structure of this answer, you can be able to answer all type of questions which are um, coming in your exams. If the question is belonging from the Christopher identity and their work, you can write the same answer. And if the questions is coming from the like the lesson and which kind of interview as common places of journalism since its invention and according to the author it is not very surprising that people having very distinct opinion about the usage of interviews. Some things of it in its highest form whereas some people can't stand being interviewed and the question is belonging from the Alberto Eco writing style and how he considered himself an academic writer and who pursued his scholarly pursuits through academic writing. He wrote about the 40 non-fiction and he himself says that he becomes a novelist by the accident and all this kind of things. The question is belonging from that, so you can write the same answer. And if the question is belonging from the Alberto Eco's writing style